Hey everyone, it's Katie. Welcome to my channel. I hope you guys are having a great day. It is Thursday morning and we're going to get started on some content related to the Duggars. That's right, Counting On is back. After a zillion seasons on TLC, Counting On has returned, and the premiere episode featured a family night via a Zoom conference. Now, one thing fans immediately noted when they watched the show was that Jill and Derick were not included in family night. Jill and Derick Dillard have not been on the show since 2017 when they left the show shortly before the birth of their 3-year-old son, Samuel, who just turned 3 yesterday. Happy birthday, Samuel. There was some controversy around how Derick left. There were some comments he had made about another TLC star, Jazz Jennings. Derick has asserted on Twitter and in statements to me that it was the decision of Jill and himself to leave the show after they had gone through some experiences that made them not want to continue filming. With the show being back on air, there's been a lot of promotion by TLC, and that has actually had Derick come out, and he was answering questions and getting a little bit feisty on the TLC photo on Instagram. Now, in the premiere episode, there was the family night, and people started asking about Derick and Jill, and that precipitated him starting to make comments. However, one thing was not expected was that he would continue to unload and sort of expose Jim Bob Duggar and what he and Jill went through while they were on the show. On Instagram, underneath the photo in which they debuted the premiere episode, Derick Dillard wrote, "Really, this show is not anything close to reality. From what we've seen, not accurate at all. Maybe I'll start a live stream during episodes critiquing what is really going on in real time." Under that same comment, somebody asked about the family night, and Derick Dillard responded, "It was done for the show. I'm guessing the reason we weren't invited is because we don't do filming anymore. Again, it just didn't fit the script for us to be included in family night. It's fine to have Zoom family night. Just be sure to identify it properly as filming orchestrated Zoom family night for Counting On cast." Then, after he made those comments about the Zoom family night, which Derick has actually said repeatedly that unless the show actually fits the narrative and unless they're actually like a part of the cast, family members are excluded. If you remember, their grandmother had actually passed away, and Derick and Jill, while they were there at her service, were not on the show. So when a fan came in and talked about how the show has changed and people were upset to see Jim Bob, one fan wrote, "I thought this show was about the next generation with the Duggar children and grandchildren. I really don't like seeing so much of Jim Bob on the show. Rather film the way it was after Josh scandal and keep the focus on the children, not Jim Bob. After tonight's episode, so much of Jim Bob, I will stop watching." Derick Dillard actually responded to this comment by saying that's because it's still under his control in reference to the show. And he will attack the victim if they threaten show. We were humiliated and when we were first tried to not film. Now it's just dependent on us. Now that it's not dependent on us anymore to keep the show going because more kids got married, so it's more okay if we quit. Wow. It's kind of surprising that Derick would be so vocal, but this is actually something that he has said in the past, that Jim Bob owns the show, and it was only rebranded after what happened with Josh. Now that we are 6 years removed, it seems as though TLC feels like enough time has passed and that Jim Bob should be able to come back. This is obviously not being met well by fans because people don't like Jim Bob. They don't like the way in which he handled the situation with Josh. They don't like the way that he did not protect his daughters. They don't like the way that it was underreported and that because of the way that he handled it, his daughters did not receive help. There's lots of valid criticism for Jim Bob, and because he's back on the show, even though TLC back in 2014 promised he would not be on the show anymore, fans were outraged. Then when fans started asking about why the show hadn't been canceled yet, or why was it brought back after it was canceled, and Derick had made this position that initially it was canceled for being politically correct. In fact, he said that at one point it was canceled, but then after they realized that they were going to be losing out on so much money, TLC made the decision that they were going to bring back the show. He believed that the money that they would make on the show was more important to them than actually protecting any of the children that were involved in the show. Then, as they further sort of discussed this, one fan said, so Jim Bob did this to your sisters, who were basically whatever happened to what Josh did to them. I'll have to paraphrase that. And then they said, because all he cares about is the money he makes from the show. Thank you for speaking out and defending your wife. And he responded by saying, we have to break this culture that cares more about money and ratings than protecting the most vulnerable. And then he brought up the guy named Jeffrey E. that no longer is around, who was a billionaire. And he said, already showed us that if you have enough money, power, and influence, you can get away with anything. Sadly, it doesn't stop with him. And there are many more stories in this world that are not too different, existing in a culture where it can still thrive. Derick must be talking about the IBLP, which was founded by Bill Gothard and has some very dicey sort of practices in terms of how they treat people who go through the type of experiences in which the girls did. Clearly, in the cases of the girls, often what happens is they are the ones that are blamed, and it's what you were wearing something, you were doing something, you were in the wrong position, and then their guidelines make it as so the person that's doing these things is justified because the person who it was done to must have caused that person to do it. It makes absolutely no sense, but what it does is then it gives a culture in where people can do this free will, and then it's under the guise of their books or their teachings that it's okay because Bill Gothard said so. Now, Bill Gothard, the leader of the IBLP, which the Duggars are highly invested in and involved with, and actually spoke at a conference earlier this spring, he actually had 34 women come up against him and made claims that he was doing things to them that were inappropriate. So in a culture where the leader of this organization, who was now since stepped down, crafted rules that would protect him, should we really be surprised that Jim Bob would then follow suit by defending Josh and blaming his daughters, as the daughters being the ones who deserved it, because obviously Josh wouldn't have done that if they weren't doing something wrong. It's twisted, it's wrong, and people don't like that kind of mentality because children are vulnerable and they don't deserve that, and nobody that goes through that deserves that. So I feel like, again, this is valid criticism, and I think Derick speaking out about this is highly important because there frankly are not enough people that are coming out of the IBLP. Now, Derick was never a part of it, but there aren't enough people like Jill that are coming out of it that have such a large platform that will speak out against this. And we need people with large platforms like Jill to actually expose this kind of stuff so people can wake up and realize that the families like the Duggars and the Bates are actually involved in a community that has beliefs that are very, very, very toxic for children, for women, even for men, because a man being told these things, it gives them an unlimited amount of power to do whatever they want. Now, Derick said a lot more, and I have a ton of screen grabs, and I'm sure he'll continue to add to this specific dialogue because once Derick seems to start going, he will definitely continue popping off. And a lot of people are commending him and very happy to hear that he is standing up for Jill. But I think the last thing that I wanted to note in all of the statements in which he made was something that he said about what the show has actually done to him. Now, when I had spoken to him, he had said to me, what we've gone through is not abnormal to what other families go through. It's just that we were on a larger public platform. And so we will share our story, which he talked about how he's going to be writing a book, and a publisher had actually approached them. And he told me that Jill will be a part of writing that book. But people, when someone actually made a comment about why there are so many negative comments on the TLC post, the person said, yeah, if people don't like this show, why do you throw such negative comments? Why waste your time on a show you clearly don't like? Like, scroll on by, not that hard. I'm not trying to be rude, just seemed to make sense to me. And Derick's response, I think, is rather fitting. He said, because it has messed up my family and people should address their issues, not sweep them underneath the rug. And this is a statement I think that is prevailing in all of this, is that Derick and Jill feel like they don't have a voice. And because of the power, the money, and the influence that Jim Bob has with this platform and with this large contract with TLC, that the network and Jim Bob are able to sweep under the rug the behavior in which they're doing, and the people that are involved are still not being protected. And it seems as though while Derick is not only advocating for his wife Jill, he's likely advocating for the other girls that are still involved in this: Joyanna, Jessa, and Ginger. There are also children involved. Now, I don't know what your thoughts are and whether or not you agree with what Derick has said. I know that he has a controversial past, and I know that some people do not like or trust anything that he says, and some people will say that he is coming off bitter. But if you're going to be a whistleblower, do you think these are the kinds of things that we need to start talking about? Like, why does TLC perpetually give platforms to these types of families at the expense of the children involved? Why are they perpetually putting out these organizations like the IBLP that do things that are pretty problematic at minimum, and at best hiding things that protect people that are doing really bad things? And do we need to have a larger dialogue about what kind of content is out on our airways? Obviously, people will say they're just practicing their religion and they have a right. And I totally understand that. But at what point do you speak up for the people that are not having a voice in this community, or do you just stay silent? These are my questions. So what are your thoughts about this? What do you think about Derick speaking out? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that he is going off and it's appropriate? Or are you like Derick, stop talking, I'm over it, you're bitter, I'm done? Let me know in the comments below. Bye, guys.